I set you up.
Uh,
I enjoyed that. You thought I was going to say something intelligent.
Welcome to the Metacast. We are back at it again, solo. Well, I guess solo. I consider us as one, so therefore we are solo. There are no guests, just Bob and I at it again.
Absolutely. It's what I mean. We've had some good guests. It's been interesting for Josh and I Metacasters. We've tried some guests, and we have some lined up. So it's going to
Yeah,
be an interesting end of 23, early 2024.
and we're
We were
learning.
talking about making some adjustments to our guest strategy.
Are we
So
practicing what we're preaching? Are we walking what we're talking?
are we stalking what we're balking? I don't know.
Oh gosh. Okay. I was trying to get, okay, never mind. We'll just move ahead to today's
Were
topic.
you trying to segue
I
something there,
was
John?
trying to segue something to you
I didn't
without
get. I
having it.
didn't.
Yeah, I noticed.
I didn't get it. I'm
Very
sorry.
clear. That's all right. That's okay. That's okay. Today's episode is about the little things, right? Like that was a little thing. Sometimes,
Yeah.
too often, people get hung up on little things, and that becomes this vortex of debate and discussion and frustration when in reality it's just this little thing that doesn't really matter, but we as humans have this tendency to latch on to some of those like little tactical bits as if it is life or death, and if we don't get it turned left instead of right, nothing can possibly work. And that's a very frustrating situation that I've seen a lot, especially of late, that I want to put on the table and give all of our listeners and viewers the capability to walk away from here to and like recognize, hey, this is happening to me and my team. And then secondly, here's what I can do about it. So, Robert,
Yes.
have you seen things like this in your travels? Have you seen them recently? Do you have the same frustration that I have?
Well, I mean, I have frustration with people talking about stuff, right?
Mhm.
Our last Metacasters, we talked about labels and things. And so in the last week, there was someone on LinkedIn, for example, who was arguing about language. So last time we were talking about the importance of language. So on the one hand, I think language really matters. Like if you talk about development versus team, or QA as a function, silos versus team, that language can set the culture.
Mhm.
So on the one hand, language is important, but then I think on the other hand, sometimes people take it to extremes.
Yeah.
And so what I saw was someone was arguing a daily. Let's see, what was it? A daily stand. There is no such thing as a daily stand up. It's a scrum. The Scrum Guide says it's a daily scrum, and my initial reaction was, and I understand it. I absolutely understand it. But my initial reaction was WTF.
Yeah.
Is like, why does that matter? Why are you arguing? So to me, that was an incredibly small thing. There's this guy that argues about Agile 2.0, right? So
Mhm.
he rails against Scrum. Oh, Scrum, it's blah 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 blah. Here, it's all screwed up. So it's not just small things. It's the gnarly things or the hairy things, or can I complain about this? Is there something? And I do this too, but
We all
it's
do.
like,
Yeah.
can I complain about this crap? But then sometimes I come back and I'm like, does it really matter? There's bigger fish to fry, and we're not frying them. It's almost like complex problem avoidance. Is that resonating with your topic, Josh?
Yeah. And it is this balancing act because you have heard us talk about words matter, be intentional with the words that you use, blah, 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 blah. Well, yes, that is correct. But that is not, that's going to help shape your culture, but that's not who you are. The number of times where I've gone into, um, new clients and we're in a refinement and they are asking a very technical, tactical question about, point sizes and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I I'm a Fibonacci guy, but I really don't care what you use. I don't. And people like fall off their chairs. Like, what do you mean? Fibonacci is the way, and blah blah. And what about this? And all of these, the Monte Carlo, blah blah blah. And like, I don't care. I don't care. What matters is at the end, we all get to an understanding of what this story is. The points or whatever you want to call them, that's just a tool to help us get to that endpoint. So being able to pull apart and understand where, hey, we're just talking about a tool, and whether it's a ball peen hammer or a mallet or a regular hammer, I don't know, a claw hammer, I guess, like we're still using it to smash a thing. And in the end, we need something that was, here needs to be there, and we're using a tool. But again, it's the outcome that matters, and that's the thing that happens. And how we get there, I don't care, as long as we're not like using our foreheads.
Well, it's discerning what's really important. I think what I bring to the table sometimes as a coach with my experience is what's really, and I get caught up in the minutia.
Yeah.
Backlog refinement. I'm coaching an organization now, Josh, on backlog refinement. And I'm trying to make the case. They're arguing, just like you said, about points. They're arguing about developer points, like can I split the points across functional silos? They're breaking them down into finely grained points. I'm trying to get them to get away from that. But they're all in the what does the story look like? They're doing BDDs, etc. They're really leaning into BDD, which is
Hmm.
rare. And there's
Hmm.
all this stuff, and that's valid. So to me, that's the small stuff. The big stuff I'm trying to get them to do is design, like have bigger stories so that they can work on them together and they have conversations around the story. They collaboration. So to me, there's like little stuff, big stuff, right? And the big thing is the collaboration part of that, the conversation, and they're not talking. They're the developers talk about development stuff, so they're very siloed in their discussion. They're incredibly quiet, and to me, that's a big thing. But whenever I bring it up, I don't know if they look at it as a big thing, right? There's a magnetic attraction to to the minutia, to the smaller things, to talk about that, and it's hard for me to pull them up. You may disagree with me that in what I'm trying to pull them up to, but I do think that's an example. That tension, and not just in the tactics, but even leadership getting involved in the minutia versus like strategy, tactics versus are you developing your team? Uh, there's this dichotomy out there all the time.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit before. It's easier to talk about the tactical stuff because you can grab it, and you can point to it, and you can do a screen share and
Yep.
see all those things. And for some reason, too many people find so much comfort in that, and like, oh, if I have this thing to hold on to, and I know, like, hey, if we're using Fibonacci, okay, cool, like we're going to be good. Fibonacci doesn't determine whether you're going to deliver value to your customer. How, somebody add a comment on LinkedIn or our YouTube video that explains to us how using Fibonacci is going to enable you to deliver greater value to your customers. I look forward to those responses. I look forward to being wrong. But so far, I've not found a reason or a way where that actually is accurate. And then you expand that across the whole thing, the whole industrial complex that Agile has become. And there's so many little like nitpicky things that are out there, and all the frameworks that want to do things slightly different and say, oh, well, this one's wrong because of that. When in the end, it's we're trying to get a group of people to deliver value with the least amount of effort possible. Uh, and that's it. Like that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do. But we want to get wrapped around in all these other different things, and that's a frustrating part of our societal norm. I don't know if it's agile or if it's across the board. If that's how humans operate, I don't know. But it's a thing that's been rubbing me the wrong way lately, Bob.
I think complexity has a part of it too, Josh. Level of difficulty, complexity, pervasiveness of it, right? So, for example, like solving plastics in the ocean, right? I was watching a show today and they were talking. I think there's an island in the Pacific of plastics that's bigger than the state of Florida.
Hmm.
Part of me, no one is even talking about that. We talk about recycling, right? We talk about like recycling in Cary, North Carolina. I'm not. That's a tangible thing.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking to myself, at some point, the Pacific
Doesn't
Ocean is
matter.
going
Yeah.
to be, it's going to be
Yeah.
filled with plastics. I mean, this thing is huge. It's actually like moving and stuff. But to get rid of it, I mean, we'd have to collaborate, and we'd have to we'd have to multiple countries would have to agree, and we'd have to invest dollar. So I think there's a complexity thing. There's a strategy versus tactical thing. It I think it's easier. It's just easier to debate the small stuff, but the
Yeah.
small stuff. I think if there's a byline for what this this chat is about, is worry about the big stuff because the small stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
uh,
So
or
whatever that
lift
book
your
is out
vision.
there, get rid of it. Worry
Yeah,
about the small stuff or whatever that self-help book is. Don't do that. I've
yeah.
never read it. I don't know. That's you shouldn't listen to Josh about stuff like that.
No, it's
I'm
not. So small stuff is important, though. That's
yeah,
like it's important, like to agree on that stuff. But in the whole scheme of things, you said it. It's not going to change your agile outcomes. The big
right.
stuff is going to change your agile culture. You have to change your culture to have an agile centric culture. Leadership. You need Josh Anderson level leaders eventually. You can't just, give them a book or trivialize it or give them I don't know, an annual review process that's been agilified and say that's going to solve it for us. No. And part of the big stuff is doing the hard stuff, I think, like firing leaders that aren't getting it or moving them on and hiring the right leaders. So there's an avoidance of this stuff too.
It's a it's a systemic thing. There's a company that I'm coaching where I just met with executives and spent an hour with CEO. And, you know, I was asked, hey, if you were CXO for a day, what would you change? What would you do? What's the biggest problem that we have? And culturally, there's an issue where any real change is never even attempted because it'll never happen. Oh, that's too much. That's too big. That's a blah blah blah. That'll yep. No, we tried something like that, and that'll never happen. Or oh
Exactly.
my gosh, to do that, do you imagine? Can you imagine the number of departments we'd have to make changes in? And there's no way we can get buy-in across the blah 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 to do that. And it is an issue from top to bottom. And I had this discussion, and everybody nodded their heads, like, "Yep, you're right." Like, okay, cool. So what are we going to do about it? And that was a moment with that leader of
Yeah.
like, this is on you. Like you right now have to own that this is part of the culture. And then you have to own that you and your team are the sole parties responsible for changing this. Well,
Yeah.
how do I do it? Well, number one, you have to talk about it. Number two, you have to actually like model it and do a thing and say like, hey, we're going to do this thing that some may have
Like
thought
you
was
can't like you
impossible.
can't pay for it. You
Yeah.
can't delegate it. You you yeah, you got
Yep.
what?
Yep.
You
Yep.
you have to do it. But
Yeah.
that's hard, right? That's a big thing. And that's a hard thing. Did the term low hanging fruit come up? I'm just kidding a little bit, right?
No, I tell you what, the CEO was fantastic.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah, I walked out of there so excited for the future of that company. Now there's a long way to go,
Yeah.
but it certainly feels like they have, you know, some really good leaders in place there to make some pretty drastic changes. And it's going to be a long slog because that stuff is hard. But um, if they don't, it's not going to happen. And then, you know, again, you turn around and you look like, gosh, dang it, we aren't who we thought we were or who we wanted to
Yep.
be.
Yep.
So,
Now I do think there's a connection. I want to see how you react to this, Josh. Like a connection, small things to big things. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to navigate. I think small things matter, and they could be baby steps or low hanging fruit or whatever euphemism you want to use. And it could be sort of we're attacking this to get there. I think there is a connection. So I'm not saying throw out the little things and only work on the big things. But if you want to make fun, but I do get frustrated with this. Everyone, it's like, where are you staying? Where's your attention? I think the majority of your attention should be on
Oh, I
big
get it. Yeah.
things, right? And then, okay, I buy it, big thing. Now, how do we solve it? Little things, big thing. How's it working? Little thing. It's not just staying down here and arguing. In fact, the majority of our measurements or our interest or our progress indicators are up here. Are we chipping away at that iceberg?
Yeah.
And what I just described, I think folks work in the reverse. It's like the majority of the time is down here, and there's
Yeah.
not even a connection or an awareness of how does this relate to the big. Like if we're even aware of the big thing, we're it's there's no connector between the two.
Yep. Yep. So much of my work is on creating that connection to whatever that big thing is with companies. Is number one, do you have any idea what your big thing is? Like what's the difference you're trying to make in this world? Do you have that clearly defined for yourselves as a leadership team? Yes or no? No. Okay, let's fix that. Cool. Now that we have, does every person in your organization like know this like the back of their hand? Can they recite it on spot? Is it actually short enough that somebody can do that, or is it 75 paragraphs long with big fancy business buzzwords
Yep.
that it's
Yep.
impossible? But as a successful leader, I think Bob made a really great point is you have to live in the big picture, but use those little picture tools to enable
Yep.
that big picture to happen. And the real secret is the tools you need will evolve.
Yep.
Walking into a new place, you might walk in there and say, hey, naming, labels, words, I'm predefining them. This is what they are. And I'm going to be a total jerk about them. This is what it is, because that's what we need to get started to get from step one to step two. Then you've moved forward a little bit and you're like worried about step 75 to step 76, and the words aren't a problem anymore. Your team's already doing the thing, that the stories are rolling, your backlog's flowing, all that stuff. And they want to change what they call a story point. Doesn't freaking matter. Right? Because it's going to let them do something a little bit better. Cool, great. But is it the thing that's going to slow us down from getting to our larger picture thing? No. So like let that be. It doesn't matter. Now the little bits that you're focusing on and you're using are different, and that's okay. But you have to constantly be evolving the tools and the little stuff that you're working on to enable that big picture reality to actually happen.
So, Josh, I have a quick experiment.
Ooh,
I haven't been monitoring the time. I know we need to land
yeah, we're
it.
longer than normal. That's okay.
I know. Uh, let's list some little things, and I'll start. So, what are potential little things? And we started it, but I want us to bounce back and forth. So, story points, um, how you rate your stories,
Oh yeah.
little things. Uh, what else?
Uh, Words I'm allowed to say in a stand up.
I'd say what we call a stand up.
What you call a stand up?
What
Yeah,
we call it. I just made a faux pas. Right. I used bad language. I don't care. Small thing.
yeah.
Jira. Small
Uh,
thing.
Cheers,
What
small. Yeah.
else? Scrum.
Um, yeah.
Scrum guide. Small thing. The whole thing. The whole damn shebang. Small thing. What else?
Team size,
Team
team
size. Small
names.
thing. Team names. Small thing.
Uh,
Kanban. Small thing. The method you use. Small thing. Didn't say it
do,
wasn't important.
yeah.
Small thing.
Tasks. Bob's a task guy.
Oh,
I am not a task guy. We could argue
so
about that
I
for days, but it doesn't matter.
but it's a small thing.
Yeah.
It's a small thing. Planning horizon.
Hmm. Ooh, you know
Small
how I feel
thing.
about those. Yeah.
I think it's a small thing. What I mean, there's a lot of whether Agile
Research
2
spikes.
is better. Research spikes, small thing. Whether Agile 2 is better than Agile 1, or all this BS, small thing. It's not. It's not really that relevant.
Am I
Uh,
using the right version of safe? Do I
oh,
have the proper release train engineer experience? This is going to upset some people. Do I have are my people appropriately certified in
certifications in
this
general.
version of blah blah blah?
Certifications.
Yeah.
Period. Small thing. It's a small thing. Again, small things are important, but they're not going to. It's we're focusing on the wrong stuff. And maybe in another episode we can talk about the big things, Josh. I
Yeah.
don't want to. I don't want to muddy the water. I want to leave people with the small things. I think
Nobody
we
likes
so,
muddy
so
water.
scaling frameworks in general, safe in particular. Thank God you brought that dinosaur, that behemoth up. Uh,
Programming languages.
yeah,
It's
debate.
you sounded very reluctant on that one. But
No,
yeah,
no,
no.
no.
Okay.
I get it. Josh, AI.
That's a broad term. Uh uh
Score. I'm sorry.
no you're not.
No,
No
no,
you're
but
not.
Metacasters. I think we're gonna. You get the point.
Here's
Actually,
one.
give us. Go ahead.
What we say.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Well, no. Let me reframe that. What Josh says.
Oh gosh.
No. 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 What others say.
Yeah.
What others say. What the book says. What
What
any book says. Any.
what you read on a blog.
Yeah. Well. Hold it a second. For
That was
goodness
an
sake.
assault upon Bob.
No, but in all seriousness, Metacasters, I think you get the idea. I really do, and I do think it's worthwhile for another episode somewhere in the future for us to talk about. It would be fair for us to connect back and talk about
Yeah.
big things, and we'll
Yeah.
tease you with that. Josh,
Robert.
from beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina,
And fr-
Metacasters.
and from beautiful downtown Fuquay Arena, North Carolina.
I'm Bob Galen.
And I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake.
And bake. Phew.
Take care, y'all, and stay small, but look big.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that means. I don't know.